Hey guys, what's up? It's JRCuber, and in this video we have another unboxing from the cubicle.us. As you guys can see, I am back in the dual camera angle. I did this in a few videos last year, and I actually really liked how those videos came out. So I decided that I wanted to continue doing them, basically. I think it's going to make my unboxings especially a lot more interesting. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. I got a new camera to do this with. It's a Panasonic G7, so it records 4K as well. So before I had a 1080p shooting myself and then 4K from the GH5, and I didn't really like how those look, how that combined together. But now we have at least somewhat more similar cameras, at least in terms of video quality. So hopefully you guys enjoy this. I have a package from the Cubicle here that has 4 items in it, but I'm only going to be doing a video on the WeiLong WRM in this video. Each of the cubes in here will get their own separate videos. I'm also going to be doing this video a bit differently, and probably a lot of videos differently from this point on. Instead of unboxing the cube and then, waiting like months at a time, which is what generally tends to happen before making a review, I'm just going to go ahead and do a shorter review segment after the unboxing to follow up with my thoughts after using the cube for a few days or maybe a week or so at the very most. And I'm basically just going to do it in the style of the lighter segments in the Cubicle reviews, which is similar to what I did for the Tengyun review. So basically just like a 2 or 3 minute segment at the end of the video over some solves, just going over my overall thoughts on the cube instead of doing a full-blown review for every single cube that comes out. And I'm also mostly going to stick to just major releases from this point on, and I want to focus more on non-WCA releases. But I'm hopefully going to be posting a lot of videos this month, so I'm really excited for that. So let's go ahead and get into this package. I think I've been talking for way too long at this point. Okay, so like I said, there's 4 items in here, but the only one I am concerned about in this video is this, the WeiLong WRM. So I'll save the other stuff in this package for other videos. Okay, so here is the box. It's quite large. It says WeiLong WRM in gold text with the 3.47S WCA record right here. So I guess what this is implying is that this is the cube that was used for the 3.47 world record. I'm actually not sure if that's true. I assume that it is because it's on the box, but I've also heard some things regarding like mismarketing with this cube, so I'm actually not entirely sure. But let's go ahead and open it up. All right. So, wow, we get a whole bunch of stuff in here. Let's go through this. All right, so we get some cards here. Looks like the pamphlet is down here. We also get the puzzle. We get all of this stuff. And yeah, that's basically it. Okay, so no need to go through this stuff really. Let's go ahead and check out what is in here. Okay, so in here it looks like we have a set of screw, spring, and adjustment system replacements here. We also get the spring adjustment tool. We get another pamphlet, a screw here, and then this is the tensioning tool here to make sure you get even tensions if you are interested in doing that. We also get a replacement core and a set of magnets. This is pretty cool actually. So this is actually, you can get a pretty good look at how all of this stuff works. So if I get this much closer, this is a pretty good look at how the spring adjustment system works. So I'm not sure if these springs are of a different tension so that you get a completely new set of tensions to work with, or if it's just replacements for what's already in the cube. But I gotta say, this is super cool. One of the most professional presentations I've seen for some accessories. Instead of just shoving all of the accessories in a box or just with the cube or something like that, this is pretty nice. All right, so there is the accessories box. Let's go ahead and get onto the cube now. This has the same case as from the GTS3, which makes sense since this cube is so similar to the GTS3. So you can take these items out of the bottom, if I can get them out, and kind of make yourself the little stand. So that pops in there, and then this just pops right on top of there. And that makes your stand that you can set the cube on, which I think looks pretty cool from this top-down angle. If I position it maybe a little bit better, you almost can't see the base underneath. So That's pretty cool. Okay, so this is the WeiLong WRM. Okay, so just to get some base information out of the way, this cube costs $30. It's also a 55.5 millimeter puzzle, which totally makes sense because since this cube is based from the GTS3 and that cube was 56 millimeters with the ridges, if you take the ridges off, you're gonna lose about half a millimeter, which makes sense. So as you guys know, I just posted my GTS3 review, which was pretty late, but I mentioned in that video that the WeiLong WRM is basically supposed to be a GTS3 but without ridges. So I'm really excited to check this cube out because the GTS3 is awesome and I really like it. Like I said, I didn't really mind the ridges that much, but it is nice to just get a normal version of the cube that doesn't have them. That also means that this cube comes in black as well and not just stickerless like the GTS3. So if you guys prefer a cube with stickers, that's definitely an option for you. The other thing I've heard about this cube is that it uses the lighter magnet strength from the GTS3 LM, which is the light magnetic version that was released afterwards. I don't know how I feel about that. I guess we'll see in a second when I do some turning. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so right off the bat, the feel feels really different out of the box from the GTS3, but the sound is really similar, which is interesting. So this actually feels really sandy and smooth. I'm surprised at how smooth this feels. I think it has a lot to do with the magnet strength. This also feels like a really speedy cube. I'm really surprised. It feels a lot faster than the GTS3 did out of the box. But yeah, I gotta say, this is... Overall, I think I'm starting to feel the similarities with the GTS3. It just doesn't feel anywhere near as like crunchy as the GTS3 just because I'm pretty sure it has to do with the lighter magnet strength. Like I said, that's probably where a lot of the crunchiness from that cube came from. But this cube also feels super dry right now. It's very sandy, so I'm sure it'll need lube, but it's still performing really well. I'm surprised. It's actually really fast, which is pretty amazing. Yeah, overall, I don't know if this is gonna exactly be the same as a ridgeless GTS3, because those magnets really do make a big difference. So it might not be exactly the cube I was hoping for in that respect, but it also feels like it's gonna be a really good cube on its own right. And the GTS3 is still out. They haven't discontinued it or anything, so you can still get that if you want as well. Fluidity seems really awesome too. Like I'm not, okay, that was bad, but it doesn't seem like I'm locking all that much. Which of course, right as I say that, I start to lock up a lot. But yeah, I'm surprised with how well this is performing straight out of the box. So let's go ahead and check out the spring tension. So the other thing with this cube is that it adds an extra spring tension. So on the GTS3, we got 8 settings. On this cube, we get 9. So not a huge difference, but it does give us a little bit more of a fine-tune adjustment between each click. You know, more customization options is always welcome. It looks like we're just on the base setting now, so I'm gonna go ahead and change this to what I believe would be the equivalent of what I use on my main GTS3, which I think would be the 4th or 5th setting, something like that. I can't go right in the middle because there's 9 settings now, but you know, we'll just approximate. I'm gonna start with 4 and see how that feels. So let's just go for it. All right, there's 4 clicks. Let's just do that on every side. Okay, there we go. So let's see how much this changes the feeling. Wow, okay. That's feeling a lot closer to what I recognize. So a bit more of that crunchiness has returned, which is pretty great. I like that feeling quite a lot on the GTS3, but yeah, this feels quite a bit closer to what I'm used to, so that's definitely a good change. One thing I'm really not liking that much is that the layers feel so much lighter on this cube. Like just the individual layers don't feel like they carry that much weight when you're doing a turn, which is something that I mentioned that I quite enjoyed on the GTS3, is just kind of how heavy the cube felt. So I don't know if this cube is gonna be able to keep up with my relentless turning as much as the GTS3 can. just because I turn so roughly, especially in competition. I don't turn anywhere near as roughly at home. It's mostly in comp, which is why I'm able to use the 356X as my main, because that cube kind of requires a light touch. But overall, this cube probably will strike a good balance in terms of how roughly I can turn between the GTS3 and the 356X. So I'm really liking it overall. So there are supposed to be some other minor changes from this cube from the GTS3. One thing that MoYu mentions is the dual track feet on the pieces. So I want to open it up and see if the pieces are any different from the GTS3, because I don't think they really should be that different. Okay, so I've got the WRM piece on the left and the GTS3 piece on the right, and I am definitely not seeing any differences. In the picture on the website, it shows like the full track on the inside, so maybe if I just take a full layer off of each cube, I'll be able to tell a difference. Okay, so here we go. I've got a layer built here from each cube. This is the WRM and this is the GTS3. So in the picture, it mentions something about the dual tracks here. I don't see anything different. What I imagine that it's talking about is basically just that this is a feature from the GTS3 that's also a feature on the WRM, and they're still highlighting it as a feature. I think it was just in the way it was marketed, it made it seem like it was a new feature. Something that they do market as a new feature has to do with the centerpieces. So let's go ahead and see if there's anything different with those. So basically what they're saying is that the center on the WRM is adjusted to be a bit higher on the cube than in the GTS3, which allows for a little bit more room on the inside for the pieces to move around. Again, I really can't tell a difference, so I don't know if that's actually true or not. Something that I have seen about the WRM is that the marketing seemed kind of fishy in that it was marketed as this completely new cube when really it was just a slightly modified GTS3. That I can definitely agree with. I totally understand where people are coming from in that respect, because when I look at the marketing, it made it seem like there were all of these new features that weren't on the GTS3 or any other cube before, when really this is basically the same cube. With all of that aside though, I think the WeiLong WRM is going to stand pretty good on itself as its own puzzle. To me, at least right out of the box, it feels different enough from the GTS3 to kind of be warranted as its own cube, even though they are basically the same. And I think this cube does have a pretty good shot at becoming my main. So I'm going to go ahead and solve with it for a few days, and then I will come back and let you know my thoughts on the WeiLong WRM. So I've been using the WeiLong WRM for the last few days now, and overall, I'm pretty impressed. The cube has a much more smooth and softer feeling than the GTS3, but I can still recognize that crunchy feel when turning a lot faster. I lubed the cube with a mixture of Cubicle Labs Mystic, which is a new lube that I'll be making a video about in the future, along with DNM and Silk. I also lubed the core with Weight 4, and overall that's provided a very controllable cube that is very smooth. The speed is really not all that fast at the moment, but I'm sure I can make it a lot faster by wiping out some of the lube and adding some more DNM. I actually tried that and it got a bit too fast, so I had to slow it down again with Silk. One major difference that I've barely heard anyone talking about with this cube is that they squared off the corners on the WRM way more than they are on the GTS3. And I think it's actually making a difference in performance, because the WRM feels quite a bit snappier and is more prone to locking than the GTS3 is. It's still not all that locky overall, but I do have to be a bit more careful with my turns on the WRM than the GTS3, and I don't really like that. I really like the GTS3 because of how fast I can turn on it without the stability breaking down. The GTS3 is a very forgiving cube, but still feels really solid, and I think that's due to my spring tension mixed with the stronger magnets. On the WRM, the same spring tension, but with the lighter magnets makes the cube feel just a bit floppier and not quite as solid. A lighter tension just makes the cube feel a little more unstable, and a stronger tension makes the cube feel a little more unforgiving. So I think the middle tensions are generally the best for this cube, but it still doesn't feel the same as the GTS3. I think the ridges may also play a small part in that solid feeling too with the added grip, but I think it's minimal. Overall, I think it has a lot to do with the magnet strength, which is honestly a personal preference thing. I really like strong magnets in my cubes, and I know a lot of people prefer a lighter feel, and I'm sure that's why MoYu went with the lighter magnets in the WRM. It just seems to me like this cube was released to have a much more mainstream appeal because the ridges were removed and the magnet strength was reduced, and that fits more in line with the standards of a lot of other flagships. For me personally, I prefer the GTS3's rougher turning that allows for a harsher turn style, but the WRM is still awesome. Overall performance between the two cubes is really similar, which it really should be, and I can definitely still spam TPS on this cube just like I can on the GTS 3, but not quite as consistently. Overall, I just get way more catching issues on the WRM, and I just don't like that the cube doesn't feel as solid. Overall though, I think this is one of the most well-rounded cubes MoYu has released recently, as the GTS 3 felt like it appealed to a more niche market. I think this cube feels like a more natural progression from the GTS 2, so if you're still using that cube, transitioning to this one would probably be easier than moving from the GTS 2 to the GTS 3. So I think for me, the WRM doesn't totally work as well as the GTS 3 did, but I think for the majority of cubers, this cube is going to feel much more like the cubes they're used to than the GTS 3 did. So like I said, it's $35. I'll leave a link in the description as always. Anyways, that's about it for my thoughts on the MoYu WeiLong WRM. Thanks of course to the Cubicle for sending me this cube for free to review and for sponsoring the video. If you guys like this video, make sure to hit that like button, turn notifications, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.